Ever feel like we're living in some sci-fi flick with AI everywhere you turn?
Uh-huh, right. It's like we're surrounded.
Today we're going deep on something straight out of those movies. Human AI decision networks. But, less explosions, more real-world stuff.
Way more interesting than explosions, in my opinion.
And our guide is AI expert Metta. He's got this whole knowledge graph thing to help us wrap our heads around it.
It's a pretty fascinating way to visualize what's going on, how humans and AI are already teaming up to make decisions.
From like what to have for lunch all the way up to, I don't know, shaping the future.
Pretty much. This
Yeah.
deep dive is for anyone who's ever wondered where AI is taking us, what it means for how we work, live, all
Okay,
that.
so knowledge graph sounds cool, but where do we even begin with that?
Well, Kick Lametta, he starts with the basics, the players involved, right? You got your human decision makers.
That's us, right?
Yep. And then the AI agents, which could be anything from a simple algorithm.
Like if this, then that kind of thing.
Exactly. All the way up to these super complex neural networks that are like learning and adapting on their own.
So it's not just one person with a robot buddy, it's like a whole web of decision makers.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even cooler. Lametta talked about decision context.
Yeah.
Like the situation surrounding these choices really matters.
Because, like, deciding what movie to watch is way different than, I don't know, a high stakes business deal.
Exactly. Context is key to understanding why decisions get made. But then we got to look at the outcomes too, right?
Did it work? Did it totally flop?
And everything in between. Sometimes it's not so clear cut. And that's where Lametta brings up feedback loops, which is where things get really interesting.
Okay, feedback loops. I feel like I've heard that somewhere.
It's like how we learn from our mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So say a doctor is using AI to diagnose a patient.
Yeah.
The AI recommends a treatment, but it doesn't work as well as they thought it would. Feedback loop is what happens next.
So they figure out what went wrong.
Exactly. Was there information missing? Did the AI misinterpret something? They figure it out, and that information gets fed back into the system.
So the doctor learns, the AI learns, and hopefully they make a better decision next time.
Precisely. It's not just about AI giving us answers. It's about this constant back and forth, this evolution.
Which brings us to another biggie. The relationship between humans and AI.
It's a big one.
Is it smooth sailing, best buds working together, or is it more complicated?
Oh, it's definitely complicated. Think about it. Is the AI just a tool giving us info, or is it starting to steer the ship?
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what freaks people out in the movies, right?
Yeah.
Like the AI takes over completely.
For sure. And while we aren't there yet, it's something to think about. Who has the control? That's why it's so important to look at the flow of information. Who or what is influencing whom?
It's like we're playing a high-stakes game where the rules are constantly changing.
And we're still figuring out the best strategies. But that's where this knowledge graph comes in handy. It gives us a framework to understand the dynamics at play.
Okay, so we've got these building blocks, but we also need to talk about the ethics of it all, right?
Definitely. Can't shy away from that.
I mean, are we building AI that reflects our values? Or are we creating something that could, I don't know, backfire?
It's a huge question, and Lametta doesn't pretend to have all the answers. But he does stress the importance of being mindful, asking tough questions about the implications of these technologies.
Because once you create something, you can't always control how it's used or how it might evolve.
Exactly. So we got to be prepared for the unintended consequences too.
So listeners, what questions are you asking? This isn't just some abstract tech talk. This is about the future we're building right now. The next time you see AI in the headlines or you're using some new gadget, think about those feedback loops, those relationships we talked about. Who's really calling the shots?
And what happens if those decisions don't go as planned? It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of new technology, but taking a step back to consider the ethical side is crucial.
For sure. This has been a wild ride. We've gone from the nuts and bolts of AI decision-making to some pretty profound ethical dilemmas. And you know what? We've only just scratched the surface.
Kicklemetta's knowledge graph, it's a great starting point, but this is an ongoing conversation, one we all need to be a part of.
Absolutely. So keep digging, keep questioning, and stay engaged because who knows what the future holds. Hopefully it's more good than bad.